He is the founder of Figure 4 Online, part of WrestlingObserver.com. He is the co-author of Death of WCW, Bryan Alvarez. Bryan, thank you so much for your time, sir. How are you?
Thanks for having me on the show today. Can everybody see me right now?
Yes.
So I should have wore a suit.
It's all good, man. You're looking dapper as usual in your own in your own super Chico way. Now, Bryan, the Death of WCW. It's celebrating its 10th anniversary. It is the re-release of the best-selling book, of course, Death of WCW, back in 2004. And a lot of people are buying the book. Some people reading it for the very first time. I guess my first question to you is, why is this the right time to re-release the book, and what's changed from the last version?
Well, it was the right time to do a 10-year anniversary because it was 10 years since the first book.
Makes
that was
sense.
the main reason that we did the 10-year anniversary. But it was actually that's really the main reason. It was a 10-year anniversary. I mean, when we wrote the first book, we had a very specific word count because if you recall correctly, if you've been a wrestling fan for a long time, when Mick Foley's book came out, it was very difficult for him to get that book published, and there was a belief in the publishing industry. As crazy as this is now, when you see all the wrestling books out there, there was a belief in the publishing industry that wrestling fans couldn't read, and so there were very few wrestling books. And when Foley's book became a #1 bestseller, I think people started to realize that, hey, maybe wrestling fans can read. But there was still the deal where they said, you can do this book, but I can't remember. I think they gave us it may have been 120,000 words. And for those of you that are Observer subscribers, I mean, Dave writes a 45,000 word Observer once a month. And so they were going to give us essentially 3 jumbo Observers to write a story about the rise and fall of WCW. So we wanted to write the book, and so we were like, okay, we'll do that. So we wrote it, and especially my part, because I also was writing at the time about 30,000 words a week, I wrote way too much. And so they trimmed the book greatly. So it was still a good book. I still liked the book. It was still in print 10 years later, so apparently everybody else loved the book as well. But, we'd always have people come up and say, why is there nothing about the NWO Red and Black in the book? I had Lance Storm on my show every other week, and Lance Storm is not even mentioned in the book. And, of course, Lance he did a lot of stuff in World Championship Wrestling. He had that reign where he had all 3 titles. Wasn't in the book. And a lot of that was because they just had to trim a lot of stuff out. And so 10-year anniversary came, and we kind of just thought, well, now would be a great time to do a 10-year anniversary edition. We can put everything back in. We can expand it. I mean, I've had ex-WCW guys on my show for years now, all of whom are on the record. There's a lot of quotes we can put into the book. There's a lot of new questions that we can ask people. And we can also write a little bit about TNA, because TNA is kind of like like
the ashes of WCW, as you once said.
Exactly. It's the ashes of WCW. And when you look at TNA over the last 12 years, I mean, there were a lot of things they did where if you read Death of WCW, you would ask yourself, why did they hire Vince Russo? Why did Eric Bischoff come back in 2010 and try to run head-to-head with Raw and bring in Hulk Hogan, for example? I mean, nobody in their right mind would do these things, but they did. So I thought that's a chapter that'll write itself. So that's kind of the whole reasoning behind it. It's 40% bigger. There's tons of new stories. There's new interviews. It is essentially, for those of you that love the original, it's the same book, but it's also in a lot of ways a brand new book. So it's kind of got something for everybody.
Definitely looking forward to it. I get it in the mail this Thursday, actually. Now, there is a funny note on the re-release of the Death of WCW. Previously, this was not released in hardcover.
No.
But there was one guy who did get a hardcover book over you.
Yes.
Can you mention who?
All right. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be an author. I wanted to write a book. And in fact, when I was 5 years old, I wrote a book about the universe. and I sent it to a publisher, and it was rejected. But I knew that someday I was going to write a book. And I had in my house, before the days of Kindle and iPad, I had books everywhere. And I loved hardcover books. And all I wanted when I wrote my book was a hardcover. And because of how everything was in the wrestling book publishing industry in 2003, 2004, we didn't get a hardcover. And so a few years later, Vince Russo wrote a book, Unforgiven by Vince Russo. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm telling you, the Death of WCW was still in stores. It never went out of print. It was in print for over a decade. I think I saw Vince Russo's book at a bookstore one time. I would bet good money it is not in print 10 years later. And they gave him a hardcover. And when I thought about the success of our book, and I thought about what this man had done to WCW, and what you ended up going on to do to TNA, I was like, can you believe, Bryan, that this guy got a hardcover and you didn't? And it was like, I'm not a jealous person or anything like that, but I was more annoyed. I can't even believe we didn't get a hardcover for what ended up being a best-selling book. And I guess they presumed that everybody was going to buy Vince Russo's book, and that's why they gave him a hardcover. But anyway, when the discussion started for the re-release, I swear to God that was the one thing that I asked for if I was going to do this re-release. There's got to be a hardcover. And they were going to do a limited number of hardcovers. They may still. I don't even know what the deal is with the hardcover. All I know is I got one, and a bunch of people ordered them. But it was such great justification to me when there are 3 versions available in 2014, when there are very few bookstores even left, and everybody gets all of their reading material on their Kindle and their Nook and their iPad and whatever else. By far, when I look at the number of copies sold on my Amazon affiliate account right there, the vast majority that we sold were hardcovers. And the funny thing is, I make the least amount of money on the hardcovers. I make 4 times as much if you buy the Kindle edition. But I don't care. I am just so happy that everybody bought the hardcover. It's like a dream come true for me. So I'll take the pay cut as long as everybody gets that hardcover.
There we go, man. Take that, Vince Russo. And I did actually buy the hardcover version of Death of WCW. So
thank you.
I'm definitely looking forward to that. Now, you mentioned Vince Russo, TNA. It's a complete mess. I know you and Dave Meltzer, your partner in crime, talked about the Bound for Glory card, or lack thereof. This card is horrible.
Well, I got to say that there are a lot of things going on with Bound for Glory that are all TNA's fault. But at this moment, right now, TNA has no television deal. They are WCW in March of 2001, when it was announced that TBS and TNT were no longer going to carry WCW. The shows were canceled. This is like a life or death emergency. And when the television got canceled, the first thing that Eric Bischoff did was not try to figure out what his main event was going to be for Spring Stampede. That's the last thing on anybody's mind. The only thing that matters for TNA right now is they need to get a TV deal. If they don't get a TV deal, there's not going to be a Bound for Glory next year. There's not going to be an Impact. There's not going to be anything. Everybody will be unemployed. The company, in fact, this week, I believe, was the week that the Spike TV contract expired. And had Spike TV not been nice enough to allow them to continue on through January, the show would be, the company's dead. It would be dead this week. This is the kind of emergency they're facing right now. So obviously their big concern is, if we've got matches, we should probably figure out a way to get those matches on television and try and draw some ratings. So if there's any company out there that wants to pick us up, we've got some good numbers we can show them. They don't care how Bound for Glory does. They don't care how a taped pay-per-view from Japan does, because they have no stake in it whatsoever. The only thing that they care about right now is how many viewers can you provide us in what demographics? And so that's like all TNA needs to be worried about right now. Once they sign a TV deal, if they sign a TV deal tomorrow, boy, I would be doing everything that I could possibly do to try to remedy this Bound for Glory situation. But until that happens, they don't need to be worried about Bound for Glory. Now, there are a lot of Bound for Glory problems. Every single interview that I have done about Death of WCW, somebody has asked me about Bound for Glory. It amazed me because it's like, is this really that fascinating to people? But apparently it is. Everybody is just baffled by what's going on with Bound for Glory. I didn't think anybody really cared. But that's all people can ask me about. And I could talk about it for a full hour. I don't want to bore everybody. But TNA made a lot of mistakes. I mean, the whole thing was a disaster from day one. When they were cutting costs in an effort to cut costs, they decided to co-promote with Wrestle One. That's where all of these problems started. And because the show is in Japan and they view wrestling a little bit differently than we do here in the U.S., it has just been one disaster after another. And I'm telling you right now, I don't want to waste everybody's time, but in a cheap plug, when the day comes that I inevitably will have to write Death of TNA, it is very likely that this Bound for Glory situation is going to be an entire chapter. There's so much crazy stuff involving this, and it is their biggest and maybe their final pay-per-view of all time.
It's crazy, man. And you wrote in the Death of WCW famously, WCW was not meant to die. I feel like that's kind of the opposite with TNA from the beginning. It's like they had the weekly pay-per-views and everything going on. I mean, their business model has always been kind of questionable. It's like they don't want to make money. With all that being said, no matter what happens to TNA, can you ever see the wrestling business getting back to the level it was at prior to the death of WCW or ECW, or at least remotely close?
Well, I'm not going to sit here and say that it could never happen, because obviously, if all of the pieces fell into place, this could work. The problem is Death of WCW and the problems that TNA is involved with right now. I mean, they both illustrate a very simple about the pro wrestling business, as does, by the way, all of us suffering through 3 hours of Raw every Monday night.
Oh, God, yeah.
The history of wrestling is often written in like a television boardroom. And if somebody comes along, let's just say that Fox becomes let's just say that Fox is like your number one most watched television network in the entire country. And for whatever reason, they hire somebody who grew up a huge NWA fan. And this guy has enough power that he says, we are going to build a wrestling company. We are going to give it Monday night at 9 o'clock, and we are going to bid big money for guys like CM Punk, for example, and maybe some guys in WWE whose deals are coming due. Maybe they can get Steve Austin in as the face of the company. Obviously, you'd have to use a lot of new stars as well, but you got to remember, how did Nitro explode right out of the gate? They used a bunch of guys that everybody thought were has-beens. At the beginning it works. You just got to build you got to build a bunch of new guys underneath, which WCW never did. But if the cards fall into place, right place, right time, right guy, right money, right network, sure, you can have this happen again. But with the current landscape right now, and like the deal that Ring of Honor has and the deal that TNA doesn't have right now, I mean, WWE is so far ahead right now that it's going to be very, very difficult for somebody to catch up. But I will say the WWE is in, it's not the same, but it's kind of a similar holding pattern to where they were in the early 90s. And if the right guy with the right ideas and the right talent came along and just kind of, jumped in and tried to take advantage of that, I mean, somebody could build something. I don't expect it to happen anytime soon, but it's not impossible.
From Stephen Miller that relates to the network and the current state of WWE. See WWE ever pulling the plug on the current business model of the network in North America, given how tough it is to become profitable?
Well, I mean, the one thing people need to consider is that the network profitable like right now, in the sense that when I mean the whole idea behind the last WWE quarterly call was it was all about we are going to slash by about 8%. We're gonna do massive cost cutting so that the network is able to break even on I think it was 500,000 international. It was something like that. So the network should actually be profitable right now. Now, when you take into account lost pay-per-view revenue and how many subscribers they would need to make up all of that lost revenue and get back to where they were, yeah, they got a long way to go. I don't think that the network is going away anytime soon. And it probably shouldn't because they are on really, really bad terms with the cable companies. And the problem with that is if they canceled the network tomorrow, after all of the rigmarole that's gone on with the cable companies, they are going to have a rough time getting anything close, I would think, to the deal that they had before in terms of a split. I mean, they'd be crawling back to the cable companies, trying to get the same deal they got before they screwed them. And I don't think that's going to happen. Now, maybe if you look at the success of an over-the-air WWE Network in Canada, and I would presume they're going to try and do an over-the-air network in the UK as opposed to an internet one, and maybe there's some way that they can set it up in a similar manner here in the US, which if you recall, that was the way they wanted to do it in the first place. This was never supposed to be an internet network. This was supposed to be, at first it was going to be a free channel, like Animal Planet, which I remember at the time I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is not going to be an animal. This is not going to be a basic cable channel. It's impossible. But maybe you could do like a Showtime, which is kind of what they're doing up in Canada. So maybe you could, maybe because of the success in Canada and the UK, I mean, maybe they could swing some sort of deal and get it as an over-the-air channel here in the US. I can see it evolving in that direction, but I don't see them like getting rid of the network. That's just not going to happen. It could evolve, but I just can't see them getting rid of it.
Scott Anderson asks, do you think the finger poke of doom is overrated considering all of the other mistakes WCW made?
No, it's not overrated. I mean, there were a million mistakes, and there was I don't really know if there was anything that really was a straw that broke the camel's back, but the finger poke of doom was a big, big mistake. When I was rewriting the book, there was nothing that we wrote about originally as a mistake where when we looked back with 10 years of hindsight, we went, that wasn't such a big deal. Nothing. In fact, there was a lot of stuff that we looked back and it was like the year 2000, for example. When I originally wrote about the year 2000, it was like, my God, this is just like terrible. It's just terrible. But after the book came out, I didn't go back and reread my book every year. And so, there was a period where TNA was like exceptionally horrible. And so I would have these arguments with Dave on the air, for example. We would argue about whether TNA was worse than WCW. And Dave, who of course he's a genius, he would always argue, no, Bryan, you don't get it. Nothing was worse than WCW. And I would argue, hold on a second, Dave, you don't get it. At least WCW had a rise. TNA has just been like at a constant rate of decline, like since day one. They barely had any rise at all. So clearly TNA is worse than WCW. And he goes, no. If you watched those Thunders and Nitros in 2000, you would understand that WCW, nothing will compare. So we always had this argument. So I go back to rewrite the 2000 chapter, and I could not even believe my own book. This was so bad that nothing will ever compare. Everybody that goes online on Tuesdays nowadays and they rant about what they didn't like on Raw, or they cry about the Bellas, or all of this stupid, like the Rosa Mendez matches, there's a lot of bad stuff today. And you can go back and look at barbed wire Christmas trees and all of this other stupid stuff on Impact. Nothing. I promise you with every ounce of my being, nothing will ever be as bad, not even close to as bad as WCW in 2000. It's impossible. So the point of this is, usually when we looked back, things were actually worse than we had thought at the time, and we did not look back and find anything that wasn't quite as bad as we thought, including the finger poke of doom.
Makes sense. Chris Dixon actually has a really interesting question here. I just listened to MLW Radio with Kevin Sullivan. He said that Ted Turner was thinking about getting back into wrestling after WCW folded. He consulted Jim Barnett, asked his opinion, but he said no, Vince has it now. Do you have any information on this alleged meeting and I guess story that I've never heard before?
I mean, it may be true. I talked to Jim Barnett a lot when in like the final years of his life. I met him in like 1998, maybe. I was doing, actually it was probably 2000. I was doing independent wrestling, and he came out to Seattle as a WCW talent scout, and David put him in touch with me because he was looking for something in the Northwest to go scout, and especially, I mean, this ain't the East Coast, everybody. This is Washington. We've had some good guys come out of here, like Daniel Bryan, Davey Richards, but this was not the best place to scout. But he came out here and didn't find anybody, suffice to say. But I talked to him all the time after that, and after WCW went down, he was a consultant for WWE, and it was funny because he wouldn't always watch the shows. He would call me, and he would ask me for a review of the show, which he would then write up as his review, and he would send to WWE, which was kind of funny. But I never really heard him talk about any of that. Dave might know more. I mean, maybe he talked to Dave, but he never mentioned anything like that to me. And I mean, maybe Ted had kind of, thought about it a little bit, and maybe they'd had casual conversations. I mean, he was close with Jim Barnett, but I really would be surprised if it was serious in any way.
Jay George asks, did being a professional wrestler hurt or help you get scoops during the Monday Night War?
I can't say that it hurt. I'm sure it helped a little bit. Like, I was good friends with DDP and Canyon. In both of them, Canyon in particular would ask me to send him videotapes, and then he would critique me. He would send back like critiques. He was trying to help me with my independent wrestling career. And I mean, I think there were guys that had a certain level of respect for me because I was in there bumping and doing matches and all that kind of thing. But it wasn't like it really helped. Like, I think I would have been fine if I weren't a wrestler. I think it may have helped a little bit with some people taking me seriously, but I don't think it was like a deal breaker or anything like that.
Are you surprised the Nitros are still holding up today on the WWE Network?
Well, the early Nitros are holding up today.
Yeah, 95, 96, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta remember that Nitro, I mean, the Monday Night War started with Nitro because it was good. So it was very revolutionary. You can look back right now. We're going through all of the Nitros from episode 1 on the Bryan and Vinny show on the website. We're at episode number 5 right now. And, some of them are I mean, episode number 5 had like a Luger Randy Savage match, which I think was, Dave gave it 1 star when he watched it originally. And maybe it was just because I watched a bunch of Rosa Mendez's matches
on. Oh, God, she's terrible and useless.
Yeah, in comparison, I mean, this was a great match. Had Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. It's a 1-hour show. It's so easy to watch a 1-hour show. So I'm really enjoying them. But you got to remember that it was a long time before the show started to really collapse. And luckily, it'll be 5 years before I'm watching the 2000 WCW Monday Nitros and Thunders. And get back to me then, and I'll let you know how it is in hindsight.
And it's pretty amazing, at least I think so.
Actually, I'm going to say one more thing real quick. I have gone back, and I have watched the Warrior Hulk Hogan War Games. You remember that terrible match in like 98 or something like that?
Was that the one where Warrior disappeared in smoke or something?
Yes.
Oh, my God. Yes, I do.
And I watched also the Hogan Warrior rematch. And some of these matches were absolutely horrible at the time because of years of Rosa Mendez's and
Cameron's.
Jenna Morales, that Jenna Charmel match, and a lot of these terrible matches we've seen in the last decade. I can look back on those matches and it's like, that may have been -5 stars at the time. That's a solid -2 today.
And it's pretty amazing that Mongo McMichael, at least I think so, is pretty tolerable these days compared to some of the announcing we get now with Tom
Absolutely.
Phillips and Byron Saxton, the most generic announcers on earth.
Those guys are generic, but Mongo is just so horrible. The only good thing that I can say about Mongo is that he's very excited about his job. He's a very excited fella. But I mean, aside from that, I have no good things to say about Mongo McMichael. He was terrible.
Eric Bischoff, though, was pretty good. I mean, he didn't know the names of every move, but I mean, that guy, I mean, when I listen to, God bless Michael Cole and JBL, but when I listen to them, I feel like they just are kind of reciting lines where you listen to Eric Bischoff and that guy's genuinely excited. He's like, "You're watching Nitro, don't miss this. If you're not watching this, you're missing out." I mean, I got into this show, man.
Oh yeah, the guy Eric Bischoff was awesome. You can say whatever you want about Eric Bischoff and how he ran the company later, but he was so excited when he was a commentator on Nitro. And it was funny because at the end of Nitro number 5, they're like building up the card for next week, and they're talking about all these big matches. It's going to be Flair and Arn in a cage, and I think like Big Bubba Rogers against it's Big Bubba against, oh God, who was it? It doesn't matter. But the point of it is, they run down the whole card, and as it's fading to black, you can hear the announcers in the background, and they're all like, "Yeah, Nitro!" They're all so excited. And I was just like, this show's great. These people love this show, and it makes me love the show.
Just a couple more questions here from some fans about drawing money, actually. This one here from Scott. Do you think that Dean Ambrose could surpass Roman Reigns as the next guy?
Well, it's possible, but WWE is a company where if they have a guy who they think has the total package, they ain't going to give up on this guy unless something goes really, really wrong. And if they have a guy who is connecting greatly with the audience, like a Daniel Bryan, if he does not fit their criteria of having the total package, they will find all sorts of ways to explain why this guy should not be the main guy. So Dean Ambrose is getting listen, I think Dean Ambrose is awesome. I think he's great. But the reality is, he's probably getting the big push he's getting the last couple of weeks because Roman Reigns is gone and Daniel Bryan is gone, and they got to make a top babyface for the road fast. Now, that's not to say that, he's doomed. He's never going to get over anything like that. I'm just saying that I still think in their mind, when they compare Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose, in their mind, Roman Reigns has everything they want in a top guy, more so than Dean Ambrose. And so at the end of the day, even if the fans demand Dean Ambrose be in the main event at WrestleMania this year, they may do that, just like they did with Daniel Bryan. But if you watch what happened leading up to Mania, and you watch what they did with Daniel Bryan after WrestleMania, I mean, WrestleMania was throwing the fans a bone, and then they were going right back to what they thought the big-time stars in the company were. And so I think that Roman Reigns, barring a terrible injury or some sort of wacky scandal, I think that they are not going to give up on that guy until they make him into the next John Cena.
Is there even a Hell in a Cell card right now? I mean, you would think they would have booked like Russo versus Big Show, maybe done something with Rollins and Ambrose. I know you and Dave mentioned about them doing maybe Ambrose versus Cena, where the winner gets Seth Rollins and Hell in a Cell. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have all this time to promote Hell in a Cell. You'd think it'd be Brock Lesnar versus John Cena, given the finish we got at Night of Champions.
Well,
what is the direction we're getting?
You know what's funny about that is I had completely forgotten about this until later, but all the way back in I think it was in July, somebody had contacted me with Brock Lesnar's dates that they were expecting him to work, and they pretty much had said, do not count on him being at Hell in a Cell. And so I hadn't thought anything of it because I wasn't thinking about where they were going. I didn't really care. Plans change, blah, blah, blah. So, I was expecting him to be at Hell in a Cell, but the next day there was no Brock Lesnar, and I was reminded, you were told in July that Brock wasn't going to be on Hell in a Cell. This should not be a surprise to you. And I was like, God, you're right. And, he is expensive enough that what I was told was he is so expensive that they're probably not adding any dates. And so I don't think you're going to see him again until the Royal Rumble. And so the finish seemed to build up a rematch at Hell in a Cell, but unless something drastically changes, that's not going to happen. And it does look like they're going to be doing Cena versus Ambrose, and the winner gets Rollins, and apparently the loser gets Randy Orton also in a cage. So that seems to be the direction, and they still have 3 weeks coming up this Monday to build the card. So I'm not shocked they don't have a card yet, but I think you'll probably at least get like a main event on Monday, but I don't know.
Man, that's a long time to put the WWE title on ice. But you know what? Hey, the longer it's on Brock Lesnar, the better compared to what we're getting now.
Hey, I am all for Brock Lesnar holding that title for like 100 years. I think he's great.
He's awesome. And last fan question here before I let you go from Michael Roberts. Do you think that UFC is going to throw stacks of money at Brock when his contract expires in April?
Oh, that's a good question. And I don't know the answer. There's part of me that thinks that Brock would really love to try one more time, because I think in his mind, he was not 100% during his entire run, and he is close to 100% now. So, and knowing how much money he drew on pay-per-view, I think they're probably going to make him an offer. I don't know, though. I mean, he's obviously going to be offered a lot of money, probably from WWE to stay. And he has to work very few dates for that amount of money. He doesn't have to be training all the time. I don't know. I mean, I can see the possibility of him wanting to try one more time, and then, win, lose, or draw, he ends up coming back to WWE afterwards. I can see him wanting to do that, but I don't know. I don't have any inside news. I just, from what I've heard from people in the past, I would not be surprised if he was interested in that. But he's going to be 38, 39. So I don't know if realistically he's going to really want to do that when the time comes to make a decision. So we'll see.
Oh, God, I forgot there was one more question here from a guy named Edward Laredo, a.k.a. Ed from San Antonio.
If this has to do with my wife.
No.
All right.
No, ask him when Ed gets his free hardcover book.
Ed gets his hardcover book when he goes to Amazon.com and orders. Maybe he'll get free shipping. That's about all I can promise.
Perfect comeback. Well, Bryan, I really do appreciate the time, man. Big fan of your work. You guys do a tremendous job at WrestlingObserver.com. Before I let you go, where can fans find you online?
Well, WrestlingObserver.com is obviously the place to go, and we have so much stuff up there. If you're a fan of the Wrestling Observer, the new Observers are up on the site every week. We've got hundreds of issues in the archive. Same with my newsletter, Figure 4 Weekly, and radio shows. I do usually 2 radio shows every single day. Some days I do 3, usually on Sunday. And as a subscriber, you get full access to every single one of those shows. And we've also got every show we've ever done in our archive. 6,000 shows dating back to 2005. Every pay-per-view, every story. We've interviewed pretty much all of the major names in wrestling that are not under 10-year contracts to WWE. All of that is available up there. I think 3 times the amount of content is the WWE Network. So check it out up there at WrestlingObserver.com. And the book is available at Amazon. There is a hardcover edition, a softcover edition, and a Kindle edition. They are all shipping right now, 2 weeks early, actually. The official release date is October 14th. And as of October 14th, if you've got a real-life bookstore near you, you will be able to go and pick up the book at the bookstore. So check it out. It's a really great book, if I do say so myself, and I think you'll really like it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, Bryan. Much appreciated.
All right. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.